So earlier we talked about how to avoid the situation. We showed you some skills in our other videos on how to deal with the interaction with the bad guy, dealing with that critical incident in that moment. But now we have to talk about dealing with the aftermath. What does that mean? Well, after you have to engage in self-defense, you're probably going to have to interact with the police. There's a lot of good ways and a lot of bad ways. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on every one of those, but a couple things to think about. After someone calls 911, now you can call 911, but also remember that 911 is a recorded phone line with the police. Anything you say voluntarily can be used against you. So if you have a chance and someone else can make that call, you might want to think about having them do that. The second thing you have to think about is what happens after the police show up. So you see the blue lights, you verified that those are police officers coming to the scene. What should you do? After I've verified that those are real police officers and that they are coming to my aid, and I know for sure there's no other threats in my immediate area, I want to then at that time put my firearm down. Some people say reholster. You do whatever you want to do. In my mind, I'm putting the firearm on the ground. I don't want it on my person. I'm going to make sure that the muzzle is pointed away from the entry point of the policeman. When they show up, I'm probably going to already be on the ground. I'm going to lay on my stomach. I'm going to have my palms up, legs crossed, not moving. When they come in, I want them to see that I'm fully compliant, I'm cooperative, and I'm not a threat. That's really important as you go and start thinking about the aftermath after the bang. Now, as your adrenaline is kind of calming down, when those police officers arrive, guess what? Their adrenaline is on high. They're looking for anything that might be in your hands that might even look like a firearm. Holding a phone in your hand to a police officer showing up to shots fired may look like a handgun. So it is important that we have nothing in our hands. A couple other things is when we surrender, maybe we don't get on the ground with our palms up, legs crossed. Then we want to make sure we have our hands up. See how wide my hands are? I want to make sure I bring those in. I jokingly say I look like Bullwinkle. I want to connect them here. It makes it very easy for the police officer to scan and see that I have nothing dangerous in my hands. A couple things to think about. They're going to start asking you questions. What's your name, address, etc. Answer those. Don't be a jerk. They're just doing their job. They'll probably put you in handcuffs. That's normal. Doesn't mean you're under arrest. They just want to ensure that the scene is safe. They're going to ask you some questions. I highly advise that you only ask certain pertinent questions, such as your identification. When they ask you what happened, you can say, hey, I had to use my firearm in self-defense. I'll give you a full detailed report once my lawyer gets here. At this time, I'd like to invoke my right to remain silent. You actually have to say that. You can't just be silent. You have to invoke your right to remain silent. Not only then, you also want to say very clearly that you give no consent to searching of you, your property, your person, anything like that. So make sure you make it very clear that you give no consent to search your stuff. And they might not necessarily say, hey, do you give up your right against the right to search or whatever? You just want to make sure you repeat it over and over. I give no consent to search myself or my property or my person. As you move forward from here on out, understanding your rights are very important. So you invoke your right to remain silent. You give no consent to search of your person. And then also you have to ask for your attorney. In the real world, it's not like CSI on TV. On TV, you get that phone call pretty fast. In the real world, the police can hold you in what they call a Terry stop. They can hold you for up to 72 hours without formally charging with the crime. You know what? In a lot of jurisdictions, they actually train their officers to wait till the last minute before they actually charge you, hoping that you might make a mistake. And I say this because once you're formally charged, that's when they read you your Miranda rights. Make sure you understand what that means. And when you get that phone call, in our area at least, it's only a 5-minute phone call. What all can you get done in a 5-minute phone call? So after the critical incident, whatever that is, usually it takes a while for the police to show up. I take that as a great opportunity for me to call my wife and tell her to activate our aftermath plan. We use many reputable companies out there, and when my wife calls them, we have attorneys en route. We have our plan being activated. You know, and once she handles all that, because I just went through the scariest day of my life. I'm probably not thinking very well right now. I want her to handle that stuff. I'm dealing with the situation, dealing with the police. I'm letting her deal with the lawyers to make sure that my bail and bond is arranged, making sure that they know where I'm at. And then when the police finally do, if they decide to take me downtown or whatever the situation is, I'm going to request to go to the hospital as well. Even if I'm not physically hurt, that's going to allow me to buy some time to let my body decompress a little bit. It's also going to allow me some time to let my lawyer drive and get downtown, to be there when they start questioning me. I say all this because a lot of people have thought about the bang, up to the bang, but very few people have thought about after the bang. What is our pre-planned practiced response? So it is very important that you start thinking about that now. Who's a good self-defense attorney you can call? Most people don't know a self-defense attorney. So it's very important that we go ahead and take some time now before that critical incident to have this plan in place. I hope that this never happens to you, but if it does, I'm going to tell you winging it is probably not the best tactical reasoning you can do. Having a plan in place, being ready with that plan, and then also having the equipment that you need, such as your handgun, in that moment is going to give you your best chance of surviving not only the physical encounter, but the mental, the spiritual, and the financial aftermath that might happen.